let's do some takeaways from day one of SEC Media Days, where a team that wasn't featured on Monday came across my desk, and I think we gotta talk about it. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Who do you think of the four teams that were made available on Monday, that would be LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt, could make the college football playoff? You can pick all four. You can pick none of the four. I think that it's an interesting and eclectic group. I'm also going to get into this topic that, well, a team made some waves today without being on a docket. Actually, a couple of teams made some waves today without being on a docket. But as I get to that, I want to remind you, we have an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify. And if you are kind enough to go there, leave a 5-star review at Apple and Spotify, go ahead and hit that form in the description below, and I will send you one of these stickers and a handwritten thank you note from yours truly. I am floored by just how cool you guys have been to go there and do this for me as we're trying to get this audio podcast up and off the ground. And it's rolling. It's about 3 days a week. If you like a longer version of this show, that's where you can get it. It's where we'll start doing a lot more live shows and get a little bit more consistent with those things as we get closer and closer to college football actually being played. Today, we had not one, but two teams that made waves today just by having their names and coaches mentioned in a way that I thought was interesting in one case, and then in another, penalties, or the lack thereof. One of those is Texas, one of those is Alabama. I did the segment earlier about Alabama and Nick Saban, more importantly, but Greg McElroy with what I thought was interestingly well-timed placement of a nugget on his radio show with Cole Cubic, said he knows somebody in particular with some real juice that believes that Nick Saban is not done as a coach. Head coach is what we would think, right? And it did what it did. Now, McElroy has since said, look, I don't think he's coming back, and the dude played for him. But if you want to get into that topic, I did unpack it for about, the length of a radio segment earlier today, and you can go check that out. I'm curious as to just what Alabama might do if Kalen DeBoer does not get them to the college football playoff in 2025, because no program has won more college football games in the college football playoff or made more college football playoff appearances or won more college football playoff national championships than Alabama. Of course, Alabama was coached by Nick Saban. And we're talking about really making the playoff every other year. So if they miss the playoff this year, that would be a first in Alabama history, and both of those seasons would belong to Kalen DeBoer. And one of the programs, actually, two of the programs on the schedule, teams that they got to worry about, one that you would expect and one that you would not, that were on SEC Media Days Monday. So start with Vanderbilt, right? I know, right? Vanderbilt. I thought it was interesting that Clark Lee said a lot of nice things about, good God, stop blowing up the phone. My goodness. All right, every now and again, I get like a general manager or head coach, many assistants, who blow up the phone because they watch the SEC Media Days and they want to tell me about it. So I don't apologize for that, because the phone going to go off, and if I don't hear it, I don't hear it. It be buzzing, I don't hear the buzzing. Anyway, that's what that is. But it's interesting. I'm just talking about Vanderbilt. Might keep that one under my hat for a little while. So, Clark Lee believes they got everything they need to play in January. Now, what does that mean? That means New Year's Six Bowl. That means making the college football playoff. It means any number of those things. But after going, win 7 games last year, people went, really? You think so? Is that what it is? And when you got a dude like Diego Pavia and a dude like Eli Stowers, yeah, you probably think this is, because Vanderbilt has the unique advantage of the best tight end in the sport playing for them. Not too long ago, that was Brock Bowers, right? Now it's Eli Stowers, who had just over 650 yards receiving last year, just under 650 yards receiving, 638. But the guy he was catching passes from was the playmaker. That dude, Diego Pavia. Ridiculous. 3,000 yards altogether, 2,200 yards passing, 800 yards rushing. Only like 4 other guys in SEC history have done that, and they've all won the Heisman or been the runner-up to the Heisman Trophy winner. Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Daniels, Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Diego Pavia, which leads you to the conclusion that if Diego had played for Bama, probably would have been a Heisman finalist. But because he plays for Vanderbilt, not so much. He talks his noise, enjoys talking his noise, and Vanderbilt enjoys him talking his noise because they be winning. When they knocked off number 1 ranked Alabama in Nashville, that is going to go down in history forever. That dude never has to buy a drink in Nashville for as long as he lives. And then he fought the NCAA and won another year of eligibility, which has people believing once again that Vanderbilt is about to be bowdy. I think there's something to that. I also think that Vanderbilt can be South Carolina in 2025. What South Carolina was in 2024, Vanderbilt can be in 2025. That's 9 wins, right? 10 if you don't lose to Illinois, because they got a dude like South Carolina got a dude, right? Lenore Sellers is a dude. The NFL has fallen in love with this man already because he's got all the tools that you want from an athletic standpoint. Like, I think of Anthony Richardson being a comp here, except I believe Anthony Richardson's a better passer. And then you put that Missouri tape on, you go, ooh, Lenoris, can you do that week in and week out? We'll get to find that out, right? Especially with a new offensive coordinator, Mike Shula. His quarterback's coach has been elevated to offensive coordinator. Shane Beamer's out here once again saying South Carolina doesn't have a ceiling. Also acknowledging he does not have the kind of history that, say, Bama does, right? To say nothing of South Carolina ain't won no SEC championship, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really difficult to enter into the SEC and win the conference championships. As a matter of fact, since they started expanding this thing, back to Arkansas, South Carolina, Missouri, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, none of those teams have won the SEC championship. Like, I get that Oklahoma and Texas are in year 2, but the point remains. It's difficult to do this because that league is really good top to bottom. And I don't know that South Carolina is going to be able to run it back like they did last year because they're going to be so young defensively, but they're certainly going to have dudes that are capable of doing it. Dylan Stewart comes to mind. That game record right there. Nick Harbor, if that dude can just, they got to figure it out. That man's too fast for you not to throw him the football. We talk about 10-3 speed. Throw him the football. Or run end arounds with him. Something. I don't know, man. Like, because if you run an option with Lenoris and Nick Harbor, I feel like you're doing something right. Or just put Nick Harbor 7.5 yards deep and let him run the football. Tavon Austin style. So many different things that I would want to see done with that man because I just don't want you to waste that kind of speed. Because that kind of speed is not regular. Even in the SEC where everybody is fast. Everybody's fast. To that end, LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier says, I don't think I got a guy at wide receiver on the 2 deep that's running slower than 4.4. Flying, guys. They are flying around. And, Garrett Nussmeier out here talking his noise. This is the toughest league in football. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, dog, we see the trophies. We understand. We also understand you ain't played a national championship game in the last 2 years. We also understand that Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy, not you, and he didn't win the national championship. Okay? That's how they keep score at LSU. They don't keep score at LSU by how many Heismans you win. They keep score at LSU by did you beat Bama and did you win a championship. Okay? That's what it's about in 2025. And Brian Kelly quite literally put his money where his mouth is this year. Donated $1 million of his own money to name, image, and likeness efforts for 2025, following up by saying, I'm not doing this every year, which I think was more of a warning than to everybody else are going, I'm paying for this roster because I think this roster is capable. And when you look at it from Nussmeier to Caden Durham to Nick Anderson to Harold Perkins to the Weeks boys, they got dudes, right? And they need to cash in. They get an opportunity to play against Dabo Swinney and Clemson, lay down a marker, and we'll see. Because playing in real Death Valley is a little bit different. Like fake Death Valley is in Baton Rouge. For those of y'all that don't know, I actually did this segment. You can look this up, but I'll give you the rundown. Even the LSU athletic department recognizes that the claim to Death Valley proper belongs to Clemson. Why? SID at Clemson went out to the real Death Valley in the desert, brought back a rock, put that rock in there, said if we can make this environment as tough as that environment out there, can't nobody come in here and take anything from us. It's been more or less true. Death Valley in Baton Rouge, man, you go like that. It's an old school stadium. You go into that bowl and that humidity just swamp ass everywhere you go. It is tough to play and it's loud at night. They bring it. And there's a reason why LSU has the most season ticket holders who renewed than everybody else. 75,000 people renewed their season tickets to LSU football because that is really what it be like, right? Outside of the Saints, because the Saints be bringing everybody together, it's LSU football. So much so that I remember Leonard Fournette was announcing when I was in the Sugar Bowl for Oklahoma and Alabama. This is the Trevor Knight game. And I remember fearing for what might happen if Leonard Fournette did not commit to LSU. But he committed to LSU and it went fine, as you very well know, right? Ole Miss. They're in it, man. Back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time since 1959, 1960. Top 12 finishes in like 3 of the last 4 years. They're right there on the cusp, but they've been right there on the cusp. And they've had the most prolific passer they ever had just depart. But Austin Simmons looks like a dude. I mean, a 75-yard scoring drive in a win against Georgia is enough for many of us to believe we should be talking about him, not unlike we'd be talking about Arch Manning, right? But we won't be. Even as Austin Simmons has shown us he's got the goods. Now, Deshaun Stribling needs to come on, right? You're also going to lose a whole bunch of those dudes, including Trey Harris, to the NFL that you would love to have. And when you lose first-round pick at quarterback, even if I don't agree that Jackson Dart should have been drafted in the first round, let alone traded up to go get, he did. And we'll get to see what that looks like here in a little bit. So LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt came through. But as I mentioned earlier, Alabama made headlines, and so did Texas. One of the things I find most interesting about Texas is how it got under their skin when people threw the horns down. In the Big 12, horns down, thrown by a player, became penalty. Unsportsmanlike conduct. To which the SEC said we didn't throw a single flag for no horns down because we not built that soft. I love that. I love that. Throw them down when you get a chance to throw them down, and they can deal with you throwing them down, or, they can't. In which case, Texas, I didn't know you was built, SAWFT.